Salutations, everybody. We hope all of you are doing fantastic. Welcome to Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast. This is episode 1, and I am one of your hosts, Maddie. You can call me Mr. Maddie. Mr. Maddie Plays. Maddie's just fine. And I'm joined by the wonderful Carrick of ACG. Carrick, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm like the 0.5 of this podcast. That's what I told one of my friends. They were like, Maddie's doing everything. And I'm all, exactly, bro. Exactly. That is exactly what's awesome. Maddie takes care of everything. Phenomenal job. Even if we have tech issues prior to starting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, that was a crapshoot. Yeah, before this, we were having some real issues with our software, so we're off to a great start with this podcast. Let me tell you what, a couple people picked up on some of the audio issues we had with our episode 0. But speaking of episode 0, we do want to thank all of you. We had over 20,000 listeners on our first ever episode of Defining Duke. We did expect a lot of people to be excited, but your feedback was overwhelming, super positive, and very humbling. So we just want to thank all of you for joining us on this ride. Continue to give us feedback. We want to make this show as best as possible. We did get some interesting feedback on a potential segment already, so we want to go ahead and pass that by you all when the time comes later on in the show. But for those who are new, who are unaware of how things roll around here, early access for this show goes live on Thursdays over at patreon.com/laststandmedia, and it'll hit free feeds like Spotify, Apple/Google Podcasts, and plenty more on Sunday. And furthermore, if you want to watch the video version, because we do support that now, head over to the Last Stand Media YouTube channel, and you can see our beautiful faces, and you can watch me read my notes in real time as we roll through this show. So if you want to support the show, and you maybe want to get us a little bit more Defining Duke content, let me tell you what, if Colin's last stand, or I'm going to call it that so many times, if Colin's Patreon passes 10,000, we unlock a bonus show that we can do every week, similar to Sacred Symbols Plus. So keep that in mind for the future if you guys like the content we're doing. But for now, we want to go ahead and let people know what we're up to, you know, what Carrick and I have been working on. What have we been playing? All of that good stuff. So, Carrick, let's go ahead and talk about our own content for just a second, and then we're going to get into some listener questions written on the Last Stand Media Patreon. So, I'd like to start off with you. What's going on in your life, brother?
Well, first, I want to make sure people don't think I'm trying to like mimic Hulk Hogan or Monster Magnet's lead singer with my glasses. When I was younger, I had injury-induced cataracts. So when I'm sitting in front of lights, this is the 6th podcast today. It just kills me, gives me a bit of a headache, so I put those on. It's not because I don't want to connect with you guys on an emotional, albeit possibly sexual, connection that we may have between all of us. But
I mean, I can't tell where you're looking. You could be looking at my chest right now.
I
have
am
no idea.
at all times. At all. But so what I've been working on. Well, first of all, a lot of people were like, "Hey, man, you know, ACG on a podcast. That's awesome." Well, we have our own podcast as well, international podcast on ACG on Twitch. This will be its 5th year. Where a bunch of people internationally, of course, thus my incredibly, intelligent way of naming it, the international podcast. I got just the tip is actually what it stands for, the international podcast. So we call it just the tip as a joke. But
I love that.
You can go there. We do awesome stuff. You'll see reviews from me, ACG, but also we started the D&D podcast, ACG&D. The always rolling natural 20s podcast, and it's been super successful for me.
Yeah.
Most successful podcast, and you'll be seeing some videos in the next couple days. It's been sort of a dead time, but that's pretty much what I've been doing is reworking everything in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. For me, for those who don't know, we recorded episode 0 while I had COVID, and I'm still quarantining. So despite all safety measures I've taken, I managed to catch me.
Still got that little sucker.
Yeah, it still got me. So. Honestly, I've just been playing a ton of games. I've had a lot of videos scheduled, so I've had some decent time off. And I'm just recharging in a way for 2021, where we're going to be doing a lot of podcasts with the Ham Radio podcast, which me, Dustin run, as well as my daily content offering. And I just wanted to continue diving into RPGs. So that's kind of all I have been up to. But now, Carrick, it's time for us to connect with some of the listeners out there. So you can write in, like I said, to patreon.com/laststandmedia. We like to start off our show with 5 questions, and then we'll get into the news afterwards. Josh Naylor is our first ever write-in for Defining Duke.
Thank you, Josh.
Congrats to Josh. I said congrats, but I'm just mixing your name with congrats.
It's cash
at this point.
and congrats. We'll send you money.
Yeah, we're going to send you money. We're making so much
via Colin. It will not be me.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're just going to dig right into Colin's deep pockets.
Yeah.
Dear Maddie and ACG, we all know how much of a whore Colin is for trophy hunting. My question is, are you guys as passionate for hunting achievements as Colin is for trophies? Been a dedicated follower of both of your channels for about a year now, so it's a pleasure having both of you together on the Last Stand Network. Smooches. All right, well, thank you for the kiss. But more importantly, I thought this was a good way to open the show because, Carrick, you have such an interesting take, I already know, on achievements,
Right.
trophies, and I know that Colin has garnered a following for trophy hunting. But for our fellow achievement hunters out there, do you want to just lay the bad news on them right away?
Yeah, I fucking hate it. I hate them. I think they ruin games for the most part for me. And like when I saw the cards and the PS5, I was looking forward to those because, there was something interesting there. But now it's just a third layer of trophies because, like, if it's a third-party game, you're going to have Xboxes have its own achievements in the game. Then they'll have their game score. Then you'll have the PS5 with its stuff plus the cards. I don't care who's gearing up for the weekend. I don't give a shit how many swords I have. I play things organically, and I get that other people like it. So the reason why this person may not know, which is surprising if they follow me for a year, because I'm pretty vocal about it, but they may not know is because I don't bring it up too much. Like, I'll joke about it on Twitter, but I'm not going to hold it against somebody. They'll hold it against me for sure. I'm sure people are getting ready. Oh, right? They're like, not a true gamer, will be the first thing. But, I won't hold it against people. But for me, I turn them off. I don't even see them. The only ones I like, I've told you about, is I love the delicious crystal sound of the Xbox Rare trophy that pops up. That shit is like saccharine. When I hear it, and it's like, it's got a little diamond.
It's a dopamine rush, yeah.
Oh, dude, I love that. But I don't like it because of whatever I did. I'm a sound freak. So I think I
feel that.
I ping on that.
As for me, I was a very big trophy and achievement hunter. I was actually the other night on my Xbox going through some of my old achievements. I was just wondering, some of my first games I ever played when I got my 360. Turns out the first game I played was Saints Row 1. I played the first mission and then put it down. And then I moved on to Naruto, The Broken Bond. So quite an interesting progression there. Shows what type of person I am. But yeah, I was just looking at some of my achievements, and you could definitely see I went through a phase at one point where I would just fire up games to get like 100 gamer score and then just move on. There was a satisfaction in that. I was helplessly addicted, and what happened is I eventually just had to cut myself off because I started to play games very differently. Not like there's a definitive way to play, but for me personally, I could feel I was intentionally diving into games I really didn't give a fuck about because I wanted to get achievements or trophies. And at times that is fun, but as we take on more responsibilities like this show, I realized that sometimes the senseless trophy and achievement hunt can't be the thing I always got to do. So what I do now is I treat it like a love letter. If I really like your game, I'm going to get all the achievements or trophies. But that means I'm very sparing in when I decide to. That or it's got to be a gimme. There's some games like I just finished the Somnium Files. This is like a visual novel game. I was playing it on PS5, and it's really good. But I got to say, like, once I finished, that was it. I was done. I was like, that was a wonderful story. It took me about 32 hours, and once I was done, that was it. I didn't want to go back into some of the gameplay sections and get the rest of the collectibles and do the little hidden things for the platinum. I didn't care enough, but I loved the game. Like, it was great. So I'm very selectful when it comes to trophy and achievement hunting, but I do not hate it, unlike someone else here.
yeah, I for sure do. But I love you guys who love it. Give me something to tease. Just joking.
Absolutely. So here's a question that we got a lot from all of you writing in. John Devine, I think, put it perfectly. Hey, gentlemen, congrats on a new podcast. Thank you. I've been out of the Xbox ecosystem since 360 Red Ringed in 2009, and I opted for a brand new PS3 Slim instead of repairing it. I've been in the Sony camp ever since, but really enjoyed the first episode, and the chemistry between you both is top notch. Well, trust me, it only gets worse from here. For someone like myself,
prepare. You set yourself up for utter failure. That's it. That's our best.
I was about to say, we are about to shit our pants this episode. For someone like myself that's been out of the Xbox ecosystem for almost 10 years, what are some previous Xbox One generation games that you would recommend catching up on if I decide to pick up a Series X/S? So we got a lot of people writing in with our show who have been out of the Xbox ecosystem but are open to joining and want to know, did they miss something? If so, what games did they miss, and where they kind of stand? So I picked from the Xbox One generation, like John had asked, because we're going to do Game Pass picks of the week on this show. We're considering even a backwards compatible pick of the week. That was one of the bits of feedback we got, and I think that's a good part of Xbox that
Yeah.
we should really spotlight. So if that's something you all want, like I said, we're open to shaping this show to your idea, and then once we have like a true set structure, we'll go forward with that for the time being. But for now, Xbox One games, a lot of people want to know about them. I wrote down a list of 3. Carrick, if you have any in mind, by the way, feel free to, of course, interject.
Okay.
But the first one that came to mind immediately of an Xbox One game you've got to play was Sunset Overdrive. I thought this was one of the best exclusives Xbox brought in, and it was around the time the Xbox One had launched. I think a lot of people missed this one because they were currently suffering from the Xbox TV debacle, and Kinect was killing them. And so not a lot of people were really on Microsoft's side, understandably so. They were receiving a lot of flack. But when Sunset Overdrive came out, this is by Insomniac Games, you can see a lot of the DNA from Spider-Man PS4 as well as Miles Morales in this game. A lot of the movement as it builds up and up, you unlock wall running, double jumping, wall bouncing, gliding, all these different types of movement techniques, plus grinding, gliding. I think I said gliding twice, but point being is it's got a lot of the Spider-Man DNA, but it's also got a lot of Ratchet and Clank in there. And there's crazy creative weapons. It's a really wacky post-apocalyptic world. And I just don't think a lot of people have had the chance to experience this. Now, I do believe you can get this on PC as well. So there is that available for you. That is absolutely my first recommendation. Would you agree with this? Are you not as high on this game?
I'm not as high as you on it, but it's not because I didn't like it. It's that I just didn't, it passed me by at the time. I was more into just, other games at the time, and, a Gears
as I
or
think
something
many were.
like that popped up. And you're more of an Insomniac fan than I was. I would say now I very much am. But at the time, I very much, I really wasn't. I was sort of ambivalent to the entire thing. So, but I trust you on that one. I don't trust you on disliking, Primal. You can F off on that. Or liking Battlefield or whatever that one was. What was that? Hardline? Battlefront Hardline?
But, Battlefield Hardline, baby.
Battlefield yeah, whatever. But anyway, I mean, it seems like everybody talks about this game enough that I can sit back and be like, okay, that's definitely one of them. For me, most of them are on PC now. But like at the time, it would have been, and that's what happens is it would be like saying, is Horizon Zero Dawn worth playing on the PS4? And it's like, well, do you have a PC now? Things are changing. The ecosystem's changing. If you had asked me back in the day, I would have said things like Cuphead, which was just, it was something that was so beyond whatever I had expected from Microsoft. Microsoft gets a lot of heat, man. They get a lot of heat for some weird shit that other companies get away with. And one of the things that they don't get sort of a boost from is some of the weird shit they do, like a Sea of Thieves now, even though day one it wasn't amazing. And Cuphead and Ori. So Ori would have been, jeez, when that thing came out, man, some of those titles are just phenomenal. But I would say Cuphead at the time. And again, yeah, it's on PC. Isn't Cuphead on Switch now too, though?
Cuphead is on Switch. Yeah, that's the thing. I wrote Ori down.
Ooh,
and
I couldn't play that on Switch, man.
I feel like I could. I don't know. I've never played Cuphead before. It's one that I've wanted to get to for a while, but I've just been so... I'll be honest. I'm just continuously intimidated by that game. It's Bullet Hell. Bullet Hell reminds me of Undertale, which made me want to rip my hair out. So yeah, I'm not even kidding, man. Some of those fucking endgame bosses in my genocide run, I just wanted to. But I'm scared of Bullet Hell. I'm gonna be honest, and so I haven't gotten to Cuphead. But I actually wrote Ori down. But then I thought to myself, well, this is on Switch. This is also on PC, So what's happened is Xbox has, given their position, they've had to evolve. And so you've seen them take their games to a lot of other platforms. And that's why this is not only just an Xbox show, but it is a PC show. I mean, Xbox and PC are becoming synonymous.
So we want to make sure that at some point.
Yeah, right. It really is. So
yeah, it's going to be about everything.
A lot of these games you can access on multiple platforms. But if we're talking just Xbox ecosystem, these are some of the heavy hitters. Ori is one that I undoubtedly would recommend. Fantastic side scroller, really strong gameplay. The story there is really heartwarming. Will o' the Wisps is one of my favorite games from 2020, a top 10, and it's one I'd recommend to anybody. Granted, you can get the first one, Blind Forest, on Switch, so that's something that's more up your alley. And then what stinks is right now, I think Xbox is building a good catalog, but they don't have a crazy system seller. Like most of you who are listening to this show, I would recommend patience as you get into the ecosystem, because they're getting their first true console exclusive, well, one of their first, I should say, with the Medium, which we'll talk about later on in this show, But that's this month. It's only been a couple of months since this system
But I
was
mean,
launched.
I agree with you, but they did have Gears and they do have Forza. So it's like
they have
so,
stuff, yeah. It's just
one
they
of
don't
the
get
things
enough
that
credit, I
bothers me
think.
is a lot of people talk about Halo until I'm blue in the face. And I'm like, dude, seriously, Gears is fucking amazing.
Right.
Look at the last Gears. That thing shouldn't have ran the way it ran. It ran incredible. It was it was mind-numbing how well that game ran. And then you've got
Right.
Forza, which started out with Forza being a game I'm sure you wouldn't have been a huge fan of, which is more the technical racing. And they did Horizon. And I still remember when Horizon was announced. I was like, I'm not 100% sure I want an open world, like explore racing game. And now that's all I want. So they do have some things. It's just that, yeah, like you said, it's a weird ecosystem to jump in. It's awesome, but you have to be prepared for this oddity of where some things are offered.
Yeah. And that's the last series I had written down to suggest to John was the Gears of War series. It's one that, despite
Tactics.
switching developers, has really maintained a high quality in its gameplay. It's only gotten better. 5 I've heard incredible things about. I'm actually doing a Gears of War run through for this show. I wanted to go ahead and do that because I'm very hyped about the start of our show. And so my friend, we were supposed to start last night, but his internet got wiped out. We're starting with Gears of War 1. We're going through all 5 of them together along with Tactics, and it's going to be a really good time. But Gears of War is a series that is very much a part of the Xbox DNA. I think it's one that's properly evolved over the years, and it deserves its love and hype. And they just added Hive Busters, which apparently is fantastic.
It's so good, dude. It's
Yeah.
so good for DLC. Yeah, it's great.
So highly recommend taking a look at these franchises. There are plenty more. Of course, Game Pass is a huge thing that we'll be highlighting here, so continue to listen on, because I think it's not just like a lot of people approach Xbox like they approach PlayStation. I don't think it can work like that. You can't just be like, these are the exclusives, boom, that's it. There's more to it. So that's what this show will highlight as we get into the news, as we get into the Game Pass pick of the week afterwards.
Dude,
and
this
you'll
is how
start to
serious
see-
I take it, Maddie.
What?
I somehow got two. You can't see them because of the green screen. I somehow got two
Yeah.
fucking. Oh, hey, by the way.
because you held it up and it was invisible.
Yeah, invisible drinks. By the way, I have 5 quick questions. I'm going to take this over from Maddie real quick. I wanted to do
Go
this.
for
I
it.
want to put Maddie on the spot. These are called Carrick's 5. Here we go. Xbox
Holy shit.
questions. You've got 10 seconds to answer each one. 5 questions. I'm only going to take 1 minute.
I'm a little scared, dude. Hold on.
Here we go. Best weapon in any game on Xbox games. It can be Halo, Gears, best weapon. Or it can be your game, your Sunset Overdrive. Best weapon.
Oof. I'm going to go with the assault rifle for Halo. That's my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most heroic moment in an Xbox title. Xbox or PC, because Gears and stuff. Most heroic moment.
I'm going to say, without spoiling, Gears 3 ending.
Okay. I know that one. Worst
Yeah.
enemy in an Xbox title.
Worst enemy.
Worst
oh my
enemy.
god, the fucking hunters in Halo 1. When I was a kid, those motherfuckers. Holy shit.
Yeah, they tested your metal, didn't they? Next up, best title for Xbox One right now. Like what I mean by that is coming as well. Like what fires you up for Xbox One?
What fires me
Or
up for the future of Xbox?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Avowed from Obsidian.
Oh, right.
100%.
Okay, here we go. This is when we all decide as viewers and as the co-host if Maddie continues running this channel. You ready?
Okay, yeah.
Halo or Gears?
Oh, shit. Oh.
You can't get out of this positively, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to
'cause
say, there's
somebody
no
in the
winning
chat-
here because I got to answer the bell either way. See, the issue is I'm going to do a Gears run through. So right now my heart wants to say Halo because I've spent more time with it. But I guarantee if I go into Gears and I played them all through sequentially, I'm probably going to like that more. So I'm going to try to read into my future here a little bit. I'm going to go with Gears. I spent less time with Gears, but I have yet to fully experience 5, which I've heard phenomenal things about. And so I feel like with what I've experienced with 1 through 4, as well as tactics, that's gonna take the cake.
And a
Halo's
bonus
got
question.
Halo Wars and I don't know,
Halo
man.
Tactics is good too. Halo
Nah,
Tactics is so good. So good.
Dude, you're fucking with me because now I'm going back on my word. I kind of want to say Halo all of a sudden. No, we're sticking with Gears.
And bonus question: which controller is the best that Microsoft has ever made, and why is it for sure the Duke? Because I'm going to fight people. I know people don't think that I mean that, but I loved having to basically slap those like a fucking Nintendo rhythm
Dude,
pad.
I was a little kid holding
were
it
so-
like with like little claws, man.
Dude, they're so big.
I loved it.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, that was it. Just wanted to
That
get
was
5
amazing.
questions.
That was amazing. I'm gonna have to do something for you next episode.
Yep.
Continue on with questions from the writers or the write-ins. Adaholic taps in saying, "Hey, Mayhem Matt and Crispy Carrick. All right. My question is simple. Xbox has an amazing catalog of studios now and a lot of dormant franchises. If you could choose one and make a new game with it, what would you choose? For me, I'm a total and utter fanboy for Conquer, and even though I have no idea how a new Conquer would look in this day and age, I'd love to see a bigger budget return for the squirrel. Thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to this podcast every week." We were actually talking with Adaholic on the Last Stand Media Discord. Great person. Great talking with you. So, all right, Carrick, you got to pull one dormant franchise from its grave and make a game with it. What are you doing?
Ooh, I
got
to add myself to that Discord too. I didn't even think about that.
Dustin will hook you up. Yeah.
Yeah, make sure Dustin hooks me up.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Immediately kind of came to mind. I don't know if you would consider it a Xbox franchise though.
That's where I'm stuck on something.
Because I have two really, and I'll say them both. But the first one that came to mind was Jet Set Radio. Because my experience with that was Future on the Xbox, but I know that was also on the Sega Dreamcast.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can get it on like Vita even. So is it an Xbox franchise? No, but that was where I first experienced it. I would love to see Jet Set Radio with more modern controls and level design and what that would feel and look like. The style that game has.
Right.
I know the developers from Jet Set Radio, I think Reptile Games or something like that is their name. They are working on a new game that involves rollerblading. So that is coming. It's just not going to be Xbox exclusive. The other I thought of was Ninja Gaiden?
Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, some people say Gaiden. I say Gaiden. But I was just playing Ninja Gaiden 2 last night through Game Pass, and dude, that game, oh my god, that game is so fun. I love that series, and that was Xbox exclusive for some time before the Sigma franchise came over to the PlayStation. But I gotta say, that is one I would love to see Microsoft have some magic happen there, because especially in a day and age where FromSoft games are super popular and Neo is super popular.
It fits, right?
Yeah, it just
works. Blown away that it's not there. For me, World Championship Rally, or let's see, was it World Championship Rally? It was an original Xbox game. It had 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I believe it's called World Rally Championship. That's what it was. They are probably the best rally games I've ever played in my life, and I love rally games. I love racing.
I remember you talking about them.
And like only game in my entire life I've ever taken days off from work, because I just don't believe in that. Like, I have no issues with work. I'm not going to take days off for it.
I've stayed home from school so many times for games. You'd hate me.
Yeah. If I was your boss, I'd hate you. If I was your friend, I wouldn't give you shit. Well, I did give Cadiz shit. But yeah, overall, that's probably the main one. And then I would say another one, but it's not necessarily, well, it's what we expect. I really do, and am really surprised we haven't heard more of Fable. And that's a cop-out. But I believe that Fable is the IP that slipped away from Microsoft. As in, it slipped out of their grasp, getting something even more so than Halo with its issues with graphics. There's something about Fable that, like, how is it possible we're through an entire gen and we don't have one? We had Halo Legends, but even that makes you go, why weren't they working on 2 or 3? Why was Microsoft...
Oh, you mean Fable Legends? You said Halo Legends?
Oh, sorry.
Freudian slip. You want that. You want that.
I do want that. Fable Legends, which I got to play at a PAX, wasn't horrendous, but it wasn't Fable. And I think a lot of people are sitting there going like, I don't understand. Why would you do this? Now, it was different people who ran it, but I would kill... I want to see Fable. I think most people would. So that's my cop-out answer after my original one is Fable.
I have one more I got to throw in there because it came to me when you were talking about the World Championship Rally, and that's Death Row. This is a Xbox original title that would thrive nowadays. It's a fighter, but it's also like a sports game where you're throwing this disc into portals, and then there's like a season mode where you can sign free agents
game was sweet as hell.
Sign ad deals. Dude, it's so crude too. Like, you're cursing people out. It's peak 2000s, but I love the game so much. I still own my original copy. It's not backwards compatible on the Xbox family system, so if you want to play it, you can play it on 360. That is backwards compatible there, so you get a little bit of quicker load times and whatnot, but that's about it. But you can't throw it in your Xbox One, and it frustrates me to no end because that is a phenomenal game that I think a lot of people would really like if they had the chance to play it. But sadly, they can't. And it's aged well. Like, it actually plays well to this day. So hopefully one day Microsoft wakes up and says, hey, Death Row, that shit would be great. That was also a Ubisoft game, which is kind of interesting. It was Ubisoft published, I should say. All right. Still got a couple more questions before we get into the news. Will Hernandez writes in, hi, gentlemen. I will readily admit I am unfamiliar with both of you, but after listening through episode 0, I'm all in. I'm curious what this show's relationship will be with Microsoft/Xbox, affiliated studios, etc. going forward. We know Sony and other developers refuse to play nice with Colin and Chris, particularly because of Colin's political views. However, that hasn't stopped Sacred Symbols from reviewing games. It sounds like you two already have great relationships with devs, publishers, studios, etc. I'm wondering if you will use that to your advantage for the benefit of this show, or if you expect your affiliation with Colin to negatively impact those relationships going forward for your other endeavors. Can't wait to listen to this show every week. So this is one that is a little more meta, but I thought it was important to answer early on for us on how we plan to approach this show. I'll state my standpoint, and then I'm curious to hear yours. But for me, is it great to have relationships with these companies? Of course. But at the end of the day, our goal with this show is to serve you, the listener. You're the one that puts our show out there. You're the one that helps, promote us, get more people giving us a chance. And so this show is designed to serve you. If they want to provide us review copies, if they want to work with us, we are more than willing. We would love to do that. We would love to continue doing that. Carrick and I have received review copies for years now. We've had those relationships established. But if this show and its affiliation with Colin is enough to burn a bridge there, I've always found that the games industry gets a free pass on grudge holding when, part of being a human is, moving past shit. And the games industry seems to just really lag behind in that, which I've found awfully strange. So honestly, for me, I am very much not controversial. I don't like to beef with people. I like to be friends with anyone I meet. Does that mean I'm going to blow smoke up your ass? No, but at the end of the day, Colin isn't lying when he says the heroes of this kind of show are those of you listening. So our goal is to serve you first and foremost. If we are given, like, let's say with the Medium, I will be putting in a review copy request for this show specifically, but also for a review on my own channel. And in that specific scenario, if they'd like to provide, because we have an audience that's willing to hear more about Xbox, I think it would benefit them. But if they choose not to due to affiliations or whatever, that is their own decision. We will continue to do this show, and we expect it to do well because we have you at our back, and that's what matters at the end of the day. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Carrick, by all means, if you want to chime anything else in there, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see this show affecting, because I get review codes more than the group itself. So I usually don't have issues getting review codes. I don't see that becoming an issue. But I also wouldn't hinge this podcast in any way in a request, because those reviews wouldn't be on here. They would be on my channel. And
Right.
I also just really, really don't give a fuck what anybody thinks when it comes to a company. Like, I just don't care. So if somebody did randomly have an issue because I'm doing a podcast with you, because it's with you,
Yeah,
then they
that's
should
what
have
I
had
was
an
gonna say.
issue 4 years ago, because guess what? Dustin's on our channel and has been for, half a year. So it's like, so why is the issue not then? Also, I'm on YouTube, which is one of the worst fucking places you could possibly be. Go check YouTube and start searching shit. So at some point, the grudge holding, and like, whatever, we know it exists. It won't affect me at all. I'll do my reviews the way I do them. And I haven't had anybody be like, well, I think also because it is sort of separated. It is just you and I.
Yeah, at the
So,
end of the day.
and
Yeah.
I've done podcasts with people who I'm sure are at different levels, in places. And I'm sure I've been on a couple. Probably, like, I was on Total Biscuits. Who knows what people thought of me at that time or what? But and that hasn't affected it. I think most game companies have a one-step process, meaning they worry about the first step of connection. It's not 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. They're not fucking tracking you down and going, you one time you spit on a sidewalk and re-recorded it. So if they are, then I don't want to be involved with them. and I don't know anything about the relationships that Colin has. That's one of the things because I skip. If it pops up on a web page or something where somebody has an issue, like I know Jim Sterling has some issues too with some people, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who does because I don't give a fuck. It's not me, and I don't know if it's true.
Right.
You know, I've told you times, I'm like, man, am I black? You know, this company's blah blah blah, but it's like all we know is what I'm thinking. You never know what the company's truly doing, so
Yeah,
I'm not
and
going to
unless you
hinge too much
worry
on it.
too much about it, it's
Oh,
just,
dude, then you'd just be stressed out all the time.
Yeah.
You'd worry about every person you bumped into, talked to. You know,
I agree. Yeah.
at some
So
point, it's not true.
we're just gonna continue to roll on with what we do. We're gonna continue to
We've been
request
doing it
review
for 4
copies, and
years.
I was gonna say, yeah. So if it
And
changes
Colin
now,
was on your channel.
yeah,
Didn't
Colin
stop you.
was on our show. That's what really started all of this. We had Colin on Ham Radio Podcast. Came on for an episode. We talked about the Division 2 and a lot of other stuff, and then
And you didn't suddenly stop getting review code.
if anything, I got more. So yeah, we expect to fully utilize our connections if we can, and our access to games early if we can, because we understand the appeal of Sacred Symbols not having that. But for us, we think we lend knowledge in early access if we get our hands on that. But that we're educated enough to provide insight even when we don't have our hands on the game. So thank you for writing in on that.
Yeah, good question.
Next is Tony Rigatoni. Hello, Daisy Dukes. How weird will you two get on this show with fan inquiries? Will we ever get the compelling sagas on this show, such as a man who will shit himself on a date? Perhaps week-long debates about which condiments and side dishes are the scorn of humanity. I can only imagine the hot takes you two have that will rile up this passionate fan base. Cheers and good luck with the new show. So this is a quick one. Yeah, we debate how many ice cubes should go in a drink on the Ham Radio podcast. So I just want to say up front early that we do get pretty frustrated on menial shit, and that we are okay with weird ass random write-ins. Just don't let that be the bulk of your write-in. Be topical and pithy and all of that stuff, and focus on the news. But for those of you out there who are feeling a little bit strange, we accept you too, and we love you. So we'll take good care of you. We'll read your stories of you crapping yourself if that's really what you want. You want that on the internet because I'll read your name. Then, yeah,
I think the difference is that you may take a topic a little longer, like on a couple podcasts or whatever, where I'm very shallow and we'll talk about weird shit in the same podcast. So in all honesty, there'll be weird shit because I'm always saying weird shit. But overall, like, I don't think that doesn't really, like, I would rather have Xbox fans show up to talk about Xbox and weird stories about Xbox maybe. But if we want to start getting into life stories, well, then that's your podcast. Yours, as in the Ham Radio, or mine, which is the international. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is I think people are really like, there's got to be some understanding that, like, for the most part, it's going to be funny stuff for sure, but we're still trying to service a competitor that for a long time has sort of been ignored. And it's like, what I want to do is offer, even though I don't love every decision all these guys make, I want to talk about that stuff.
100%.
More so, because otherwise, dude, we'll just talk about it on Friday on our podcast. Like,
yeah, right.
We've already got that.
Part of it is, the goal is to make sure we separate our two shows. We don't want it to feel like an extra ham. We want to make sure that we focus on Xbox a lot, and we're definitely going to do that. The news this week is awesome. So we got one more question, and then we can just dive right into it. Dominic Brandt writes in, "Hey lads, what if along with or in place of Game Pass Game of the Week, you guys had a recommended backwards compatible game from the OG Xbox or 360? I feel like there's such a long list of games to revisit from the past, especially when they're not available on PS4/PS5. Really excited for the show. Happy New Year." So wanted to pass that by just one more time. Please do leave your feedback if you think this would be a good part of our show. But with that, Carrick, it's time for us to get into the news.
Let's
do
it.
Prepared, sir? Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Always.
Number 1. Jez Corden of Windows Central reported on Twitter that it's very well possible uPlay gets rolled into Xbox Game Pass, the evolving service that Xbox is probably best known for at this point in time. In a tweet, he states, quote, "I've seen rumors about Ubisoft's uPlay Plus joining Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. I think this has a strong chance of being true based on stuff I've heard." And then ST wrote in through the Last Stand Media Patreon saying, "Hey fellas, 2 questions because I'm greedy. 1, who does Microsoft acquire next? And 2, will Ubisoft's subscription service come to Game Pass a la EA Play? Thanks, you both rock." All right, Carrick. So the news is out. There's a chance that uPlay is being rolled into Game Pass. A lot of people thought they'd sort of tear it off with EA Play. They just rolled that whole sucker in. Does the same treatment in a service that carries the likes of Far Cry, all of the Assassin's Creed games, You got Siege in there. You've got so many games. Child of Light. Does this happen? Does Uplay Plus make its way to Game Pass Ultimate?
I don't know if Plus will. I talked about this about 3 weeks ago on the podcast because I heard the same stuff. I don't know what he means by C, but I will say, talking to people who work at various companies and sort of what everybody's looking for and why EA did it. Because that's one thing people need to realize is if money-wise, financially, it makes sense. A third-party platform, they'll go to Luna. They've already gone to Luna, which is streaming through Amazon. Ubisoft has, so it's shown that they have no issue separating their games. They're on Steam. They're on their own service. I don't know, because I also wonder if the spread for cost right now is becoming a little tenuous for Microsoft to not raise the cost of Game Pass to offset a company like Ubisoft. What Ubisoft could do is something like a grab bag thing where they call it a different type of service and it's like a couple games a month are free or something like that. Additionally, they'll probably look at titles that aren't selling incredibly high because Microsoft's Game Pass has a very odd logic to it where it results in more sales. And I can certainly tell you it has for me. Like, even though I have Game Pass, I've bought multiple games that are still on Game Pass because my brain's like, well, if it goes away and I've enjoyed it and I have no problem rewarding devs. So, yeah, I don't know on that one. I mean, I've heard a lot of back and forth about it, but I didn't expect them to go to Luna, which makes me wonder how much like back end stuff they've got, like how many people they've got for customer support for multiple streaming services, where they want to put them, the packages. By the way, that would require different packages too, as in developers would have to make sure the package was prepped for Game Pass versus, other stuff.
Yeah, I just can't help but get excited at the idea of, even though I wasn't a huge fan of the game, but like Immortals Phoenix Rising being something that's available to people through Game Pass.
Yeah.
That is the exposure a game like that could benefit from. But Ubisoft games typically don't struggle, especially when you look at like Assassin's Creed with Valhalla, which was immensely successful. I think Microsoft will have to pay a premium if they want to get the bulk of this in. I mean, but they've got other titles. Like, I'm just looking now.
Ubisoft releases a lot of titles, don't they?
There's so many games, man. I found in here Child of Light. South Park series, which is, a great series of RPGs. Primo. I mean, the Splinter Cell games, the older ones. I mean, there's a lot for them to benefit from if they get this into Game Pass.
And Ubisoft already has some games on Game Pass. That should also be remembered. Yes, it's not like they don't have some games already.
Yeah, I think this is something that could very well happen. It just kind of makes sense with Microsoft's playbook, honestly. There's no specific inside source or reasoning other than just I could totally see them going for something like this. It seems like the next thing that would add value to Game Pass. But what we have to remember is Bethesda is going to have all of their stuff heading to Game Pass. We already saw Doom make their way there. They've had Skyrim Special Edition. There is Fallout 3, New Vegas, 76 is on there. But we have yet to see, like, I think the Dishonored franchise is not on there. Prey was previously on there and left. But once I think that the Bethesda acquisition is official, that is going to be a bulk of brand new titles heading to Game Pass as well. That's going to instantly add value because there is currently stuff missing there. So I think if I'm Xbox, you want to, if they're looking at Uplay, which I have no doubt they're making their phone calls on it, I do think they're going to try to balance it out. Like, when does the Bethesda deal end up being official, and when can we get Uplay in? If you can get Uplay in before Bethesda, maybe Bethesda's happening in June and you can get Uplay in by March, then yeah, I'd say go for it, right? Because then you've got 2 beats to add to your biggest value program. The question is, of course, as always, how Microsoft manages to stay afloat while paying all this obscene amount of money for access to games. But I think given that Ubisoft is on Luna, I do feel like with Uplay, it's where's the money at, right? So if Microsoft's willing to pay, I'm sure Ubisoft is willing to play. So I fully expect Uplay to at some point in some way, shape, or form be in Game Pass. And I think you're onto something when you say the packaged games, because there's just so fucking many. It would make sense to just like be like, here's a bulk of Assassin's Creed games. Next month we'll have a bulk of Far Cry and some more Assassin's Creed games along with Immortals, that type of stuff. So we'll see. But that was our number 1 header for the news. Number 2, sticking with Game Pass here, As per usual, Xbox Game Pass is seeing more additions to its library, but there are also subtractions. On January 15th, Microsoft will remove FTL Faster and Light, My Friend Pedro, Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet, and Tekken 7 from its service. So all of these games outside of Sword Art Online, sorry, I can't speak this episode. I have played, and I got to say, I've enjoyed all of these thoroughly. So these are some pretty substantial subtractions, but in December, we had to keep in mind that Microsoft had announced that the Yakuza Remastered Collection, packaging in Yakuza 3, 4, and 5, will be added to Game Pass on January 28th. 7 new games will also be making their way to Game Pass. On January 7th, eFootball PES 2021 Season Update will be available on Android and console. Injustice 2 will be available on Android, console, and PC. The Little Acre will be on console and Android. On January 14th, through the ID at Xbox program, Neoverse will head to PC Game Pass. Torchlight 3 will join via Android and console. What Remains of Edith Finch will land on PC Game Pass, and Y2K, a postmodern RPG, will arrive on PC as well. So that's once again happening January 14th. Now, what do you make of these additions and subtractions here, Carrick? Are you excited about the Yakuza games getting added as well as Injustice 2? I mean, I think you could go on for a while with that one, couldn't you?
Yeah, Injustice 2 is like getting that really cool car you already own, but you just don't give a fuck because now you've got 2 really cool cars. Because most people probably already have Injustice 2, but I fucking adore Injustice. I think it's one of the best single player, just packed with content till you, I mean, the multiverse. So to me, that is worth some of these going off. And then Yakuza, that's awesome too. Like they do get rid of some, but it's certainly nowhere near what they've got. So at some point, I'm okay with going like, okay, you know, Sword Art Online is leaving. All right, whatever. FTL is leaving. Okay, whatever. Because there's just so many additions. At some point, those don't, they sort of outweigh one another. But yeah, for me, Injustice is just like, I can't wait because I'm hoping more people will play.
Yeah, absolutely. That and I gotta say, Yakuza. For those out there who have not given this a try yet, they already have Kiwami 1 and 2 as well as 0 on Game Pass on console.
It's
And
ridiculous.
now they've got 3, 4, 5 there. I mean, please, if you have not, give this series a try. Of course, 7 is another great starting point, and right now Xbox does have the unique next gen upgrade for the Series X,
Yeah.
where PS5 has yet to get that. So you can take advantage of that, and I've heard 7 is a perfect starting point for people, but that does have turn-based combat, whereas the rest of the franchise is more action beat 'em up. And there's some of the most wild mini games of all time. Some really interesting side quests. Interesting being a very choice word there because they can be really off the rails. And the stories are usually quite heartfelt. It's a very unique package of a game. And having all of that series pretty much outside of 6 available on Game Pass is insane value in its own right. It kind of pays for itself. So I really do recommend giving these games a look. I've got to say, they're fantastic. I've played Kiwami 1 and 2. And like, just for perspective, Kiwami 2 has its own beat 'em up gameplay. It's got its own progression systems, but then you have a cabaret club that you can manage, and then you have like an RC racing car mini game, and then it has an RTS built into it at a construction site. Like that's like 3 different games completely in this beat 'em up that has a really good story. So I hope that can sell you on Yakuza. Give it a try. But Injustice 2, I was a pretty big fan of as well. I gotta say, I like the story, but the multiverse didn't speak to me as much. So, but on Game Pass, if you got access to it, it's worth a whirl. You can play through that story in a sitting. It's about 6 hours long.
Yeah.
It's got multiple endings, right? If I remember
It's
correctly.
got multiple endings. Plus, it has the thing where every time you play one of the arcade versions, they have their own mini endings. So you have another 40 on top of that. Each of the characters has their own sort of like mini story and mini ending. I will say that the reason why the multiverse worked for me is because it captured everything that I like about comics, but I've never spent the time to really embrace in comics, which is like multiverse stuff. So the idea that you're playing that game and you go to a universe where like the world is twisting because gravity's been screwed up or everything's on fire, that's next level to me. Like next level. I mean, I'm just sitting there going like, dude, they could do anything. There's thousands of variations that they can do. There was one where like you're a bad Batman and you can call Scarecrow for backup, and I was just like, what? Like, what is going on? It was so, and he would join you in your battle. So Like there's a lot in that game, even if you don't like the
Yeah.
multiplayer, which I know is a bit not broken. I think you said projectile heavy on the multiplayer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's just me personally being me. You know, I don't like the projectile spamming online, but you
Nah,
can't
but
control
you're
people.
not the only one who's I've seen that mention that. For sure.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is you just got to accept fighting games are going to be fighting games. Like no matter what you play, you're going to have those people who just try to like break the system and use all mechanics against you to win, even if it's a little cheese. But then again, you're talking to someone who submitted over 150 hours in Dragon Ball Fighter, so
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
and at what point do you both
pick your
need to
poison.
fucking bow and agree on some kind of rule set? I think
Right.
that's sort of bullshit anyway. Hey, if the game
Right.
allows it, figure the fuck around it or leave, which you left, and it sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But it's the same thing with snipers. I'll hear a lot of people be like, man, that guy was camping. And it's like, bitch, do your job. Figure it out.
Flush him out.
Figure
Get
it
in
out.
there.
It's like UFC. You'll have somebody, oh, he wrestle fucked him and he won. And it's like, guess what? Guess whose fault that is? The person who fucking lost. It just is. It's a certain set of rules in any game, and those rules are pretty easily defined, and people are working around it. And you can leave, which is what you did, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is a very substantial choice to say, this doesn't work for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with leaving. Like, you know, I wish more people would just leave and not hate, because that's what you get. Is somebody's like, they
Yeah.
feel like they missed out. And it's like, how much would you have really played if it was perfect? I don't know. Maybe you can answer that. Maybe you would have played Injustice for 1,000 hours if it had worked perfect online. I don't know. But I think a lot of people just
Yeah.
feel or sort of pretend that they would, and they hold it against something.
Right. Well, these are the next games heading to Game Pass. A lot more value coming your way, so keep an eye out for those respective games. Number 3, speaking to Vandal, Dishonored co-creator Harvey Smith confirmed he's working on a new unannounced game at Arkane Austin alongside the devs from both the Dishonored and Prey team. The Arkane team in Austin is best known for their work on Prey. Perhaps more notable is that Harvey stated he is not working on Deathloop, the timed PlayStation exclusive releasing May 21st, 2021. Harvey did not comment on when to expect this new game. Now, I gotta say, I was very excited for Deathloop when it was first revealed, because I was under the impression it was going to be this, pretty much what Dishonored was, what Prey was, this kind of meticulous level design. You can crawl through the
Right.
level and play in a number of ways. As we've seen more with Deathloop, it seems more of an action game where you're on a clock, and I think it's going to have its own heartbeat, and it looks great. But what I love from the Arkane studios is what we got from Dishonored and Prey. So with Harvey Smith on that team, we know we're probably going to get something along those lines, which is very good news. We just don't know when that is. So what do you make of Harvey confirming that? Do you think it's Dishonored? Because he didn't say it was a new IP. He just said it was a new unannounced game. Those are his
Yeah, I don't
words.
know. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about it on the international because I had heard something along those lines, but it was like that was it. So I don't really have anything to add. This is it. So there's a little bit of a leak there because I think a couple of us were talking about it a couple weeks ago, but it's like the leak hasn't stated anything else. You know, there's been no other data on what it would be. I think it's also probably because it's so early. I'd rather, if Harvey wants to, you know, anybody wants to make their own thing, state you're working on a game, but I don't require them to like know exactly what they're making right now. You know, they may go halfway, think they're making a Prey 2 style game, and then all of a sudden be like, hey, we got this better idea. And I would rather have them be sort of open to that. So it's cool that they're working on something, but I hope they can keep it quiet because I would like them to sort of have that freedom of sort of messing around with ideas until they're sort of solidified and can say, this is what we're doing. Because I agree with you on the other game. Big time. The Bulletproof or whatever.
Deathloop is
Deathloop.
going to be
Bulletproof's
great. I think I have no doubts, but it's just not the speed of a game that I want from Arkane.
Right.
It's just where I sit on the fence with that game. I'm still going to pick it up and play it. I still want to talk about it. But yeah, when it comes to this next game, I do wonder if it'll end up being, you know, because once again, now Arkane is under Xbox. Does this potential new game end up being exclusive? We will have to wait and see. I assume so. But with that in mind, I got to wonder, Dishonored was put on ice for a while because it wasn't performing well. And
Not at
quite
all,
honestly,
yeah.
if anyone's played all the DLC as well as Death of the Outsider, the series kind of, you know, wrapped things up. There is room for more. There's always going to be room for more. But Dishonored, as it stands now, could go on a little bit of a hiatus, but I imagine it's going to come back over time. Well, as Prey, there is definitely room for a sequel. I would imagine they're probably going to do that, especially since it is the Austin studio. That would just be my guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, time will tell. Number 4, Elder Scrolls 6. Yes, this may be years away, but that has not stopped Bethesda Game Studios from teasing that the game is going to be set in Hammerfell, which a lot of people have already deduced in general through trailer analysis and just general lore I'll be highlighting in this segment here. So this may not be specifically new news for people, but for those who are not as geared in, I think this is still super interesting stuff from Bethesda, and it's very strange for them to do a tease like this. So in a post on the Elder Scrolls Twitter account, the team rung in the new year by saying, quote, transcribe the past and map the future, end quote, accompanied by a photo featuring Elder Scrolls Online coins sitting atop a compendium next to a map with part of Skyrim on it, and a candle sitting directly next to Hammerfell. In the lore of the Elder Scrolls, Hammerfell refuses the White Gold Concordat, which is an agreement to ban the worship of the god Talos and leads to extended conflict with the Thalmor, which is an elven race, for those who don't know. Now, the region sits in a fragile peace between a shattered empire, which we experienced, of course, in Skyrim, the Thalmor, which is, on the teetering edge of war, and split beliefs in Hammerfell. So it gives you a little bit of a backdrop of what really may be happening. This is directly from a book in Skyrim called The Great War, if anyone ever wants to check it out for themselves. But Elder Scrolls 6 being set in Hammerfell is something that I've speculated for a while, and Bethesda laying out this map here with ESO coins, and that's kind of like the past. Then the map with Skyrim is sort of a present thing, and then the future is this one part of Hammerfell that they showed, because they could have shown off Cyrodiil or multiple regions of Tamriel, which is, for those who don't know, the continent for the Elder Scrolls franchise. But they chose to show specifically Hammerfell. It was very much a clear tease. It's very hard to have much to go off of other than why now, right? This game is so many years away. I can't imagine we're getting another trailer, because I feel like Bethesda wants to focus on Starfield, maybe get that out this year. So the only thing that we can really discuss with this is, unless you have more knowledge on Elder Scrolls lore, is what do you make of Bethesda teasing where we're going to see Elder Scrolls 6 set, even though it's probably like 5 years off?
I mean, it could be tied into the purchase, where Microsoft is like, hey, do you guys have anything? And let's sort of start pushing it out and getting people excited in whatever we're building. I don't know how far it is out. There's been rumors of all this stuff. I mean, I don't know why they would do it this early, unless, I don't know why. Like, this one sort of puzzles me because it only speaks to true Bethesda fans. Because other people are going to go, who the fuck's Hammerfell? And it's like, it's not who, it's a place. And they'll be like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
It only speaks to a very, 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 very small subset of people this early. I don't mean a small subset overall. I just mean people who are watching their Twitter, who are watching that exact post. It starts to filter down. So, I don't know much about it. Other than, like I said, it could be something where Microsoft and them are like, okay, we're together. We've got our shit, concrete now. Let's roll out for a possible E3 in the future. Also, Microsoft does have to show a couple unique things, and maybe this is just them saying, hey, let's keep people sort of on the hook, remembering that we've got something coming.
Yeah, because I believe their flagship will be Elder Scrolls 6 if they go the exclusive route. Like, that is, because for a lot of people, let's be honest, I would never call it this, but the term would be the next Skyrim. That would be what it is for a lot of folks, because Skyrim was that accessible, very popular game that, the non-gamers game at times, right? Even if you talk to someone who did not play video games typically, they would be playing Skyrim. And so I feel like hearing that another game in that franchise is coming from that same team would be very beneficial to Xbox if it were exclusive. And we've seen that historically with the likes of Morrowind originally being a console exclusive. Oblivion.
God, that was so good on the original Xbox.
Oh yeah,
man, holy shit.
It took me a while to come around to Morrowind. I was not, it was one of the first games I played alongside KOTOR, and I think it was just, way too advanced for
dude,
was
and inventory
10.
and stats, and you're looking at it going, what the shit is happening
map,
here?
Just kind of like reading directions from a fucking journal. Yeah, so I mean, it took me a while. It took me until a couple of years ago to really come around
Mm.
on Morrowind and start to like it. It's interesting because I went back, I think it was 2018, and I replayed Oblivion, and that game, just because of the procedural generation of content and how they created their dungeons, I don't know if people would. It has a magic to it, but I don't know if people will like that game as much as maybe they once did. I'd be curious to hear the audience thoughts on
Daggerfall
that.
was procedural as well and used
Yeah,
seeds, and it was super popular. But I would agree that you have to do something to hide the procedural part. And
yeah,
you
that's
know,
exactly.
mods. I remember, you know, I had the 360 version. I wanted mods because OOO and MMM, Mardigan's Monster Mod and Obscuros, whatever, were out for PC, and I was just like,
Hmm.
you were jealous, you know, because you're playing the 360 version, which wasn't bad or anything, but you know, everything was scaled. I don't know if you remember that. You know, leveling
Right.
was a little monstrous there. There were a couple issues, but I don't think it probably would be. It just depends though too. If there's nothing else coming out, well, like look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk came out. It didn't do. It sold well, but a lot of people are still wanting that, and you're starting to see PC Gamer and others running top 5 games like this,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
maybe depending on what else was out at the time, that Oblivion might do really well if there wasn't something else to feed
Mhm.
the feed. Like right now, dude, imagine a remake. Imagine a remade with mod capability Oblivion
Don't tease me.
right now. Like
Don't
right
tease me.
now for winter, people would that I do think, especially looking into 2021, and some people thinking it's lean, that would be
Yeah.
pretty insane.
You gotta wonder with with having the Fallout IP. I know it's not Elder Scrolls, but with the Fallout IP, and you got
But it's huge.
Obsidian, and then you got In Exile. Like you've got so many heads that have been in Fallout's history. I can't imagine Microsoft in any world not going like, okay, let's remaster these. Like I just, mm, I don't rile me up. We got to move on to the next one. Number 5. Xbox is getting one of its first true Xbox Series X/S exclusives in the form of the Medium. A preview from IGN has landed alongside 14 minutes of gameplay for folks to check out. We wanted to highlight this because we were just talking about how the Medium's coming out soon in episode 0, and they needed to show something for it, so they did seem to hear our claims. We willed it into existence. IGN's Ryan McCaffrey, which, by the way, a lot of people in the comments said apparently I look like him,
I
which is
did see.
interesting.
I did
A
see
lot
somebody
of
say
people
that.
were like, is that Ryan McCaffrey's
By
son?
the way, those are the same type of people who say because I have a beard, I look like blah blah blah. You don't look
Yeah.
like Ryan McCaffrey. So continue.
Hey, I'll take it. He's a good-looking guy. He's a nice guy.
He is a
Love
nice
Ryan
guy.
McCaffrey, so I'm okay with that. But he noted that the game reminded him a lot of Alan Wake, as it's being built off a lot of the game's tension. There was like a flickering light even for the flashlight. And so the Medium drops January 28th, 2021. Alan Ortega Lopez writes in via patreon.com/laststandmedia. The Holy Trinity, CLS, Mr. Matty, and ACG. I play on basically everything, but Xbox has my nostalgia, and seeing them start to do better warms my dead soul. My question is, why is no one talking about the Medium, an Xbox console exclusive that looks amazing and comes out this month? I'm excited for this show as a listener of you guys since Colin went on ham radio. So, Carrick, have you had a chance to check out some of the gameplay, some of the previews?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
did you think of what you saw? Because I'm excited for this game. The fact that they literally said we're not going to do Xbox One, we're going to do Series X and S because we can't have the game running pretty much 2 times at once,
Right.
made me excited because it felt like a game that's really utilizing what next gen is capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Not. I mean,
Huh?
like a gimmick doesn't sell me. Not that you're sold on a gimmick, but the
Oh,
gimmick
so
of
I'm an
the
idiot.
no. That's what I want to make sure because I know somebody's going to say that. The gimmick of the two at one time is cool until it like burns out. And we saw with No
Mhm.
Way Out from what's his name that you can make a game that goes all the way through. I really like No Way Out, and that was a co-op.
Oh,
With,
Joseph
you know,
Fares. Yeah.
yeah. So it's possible Medium does the same thing. I love Alan Wake, so obviously there's that. But what I have seen, and this is just what I've seen, was not eye-catching. And in fact, it was what I felt was terrible if you're trying to get fans. And I think that's one of the reasons is they have not shown anything that makes you go, like, it's just a person walking around talking in different landscapes. And if you're not exactly filtered down to liking just that, when you see the Medium, you'd be like, well, what's for me? Like, what is for me?
Mhm. I get
What's
that.
here beyond that? And so right now that's where I am. I'm like, I already know what they're trying to do. I need to see what's actually occurring though. So it's cool, but I'm not super hot on it right
Yeah.
now.
For me, that gimmick looks cool, and I got to say that if it's in the thing is I feel like it's one of those games where it's hard to sell the tension, right? Like
Very
how
hard,
do you
yeah.
sell tension on that's the thing. I mean, it's already in a corner, right? It's a Series X/S exclusive, then it's a horror game, then it's not being mass marketed. I mean, there's a lot there that's going to work against it where I doubt this game's going to end up doing well, but it looks interesting, and I think it's another one of those games that you look at and go, well, this is we talked about filling holes, and when we look at the end of the road for Xbox and kind of what they're building here, having on Game Pass, say, alongside all these other heavy hitters that we've kind of been highlighting early on, having something like the medium to offer exclusively, I think could be a big deal for people. Some of my favorite experiences with games are just playing horror alongside a friend. So
I
I'm
think
looking
the
forward
big
to this
issue
game
though, Maddie, is
personally.
that I had to live through Quantum Break, which was also exclusive, and also
Hey,
by them.
hey,
And
I
I,
enjoyed
I
Quantum
enjoyed
Break.
Quantum Break, but it wasn't a world shaker, right?
No, it wasn't. No.
And they showed content for that. With the medium, they haven't yet. So like with Quantum Break, I knew what it was. And I was already
Right.
getting ideas. I was like, okay, I get what the gameplay is. As of yet, with the medium, I mean, dude, it comes out this month. And
Yeah.
so far, I'm still like, well, what are you doing during most of it? Are you just walking around like, let's say, Life is Strange, which
Hmm.
not necessarily a bad thing because I love Life is Strange, but I need to know. It's at
Yeah.
some point when are we going to find out what the fuck you do in it, and how it works. I just want
Yeah.
more
I
data.
understand. Hopefully, when we play it, it ends up being good.
Yes, very much so.
Number 6, we're going to be highlighting Larry Erb's Xbox podcast, which during their episode closing out 2020, Phil Spencer shared his excitement about modding in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Quote, how do we take that same compatibility, unlock the creative potential of the community to go and build content that they can sell to people who are playing? I love's going on today, and I was looking through the marketplace of content in Flight Sim, and there was a lot of stuff to go by. It's just cool to see people building their business around creating content for video games, end quote. Now, Microsoft Flight Simulator boasts an in-game marketplace that features mods called the Partner Program. These mods are sold by after mod authors join said program and are provided with analytics on how their work is performing in both revenue and generated, as well as the amount of downloads their work is receiving. So when it comes to Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's really not the game itself that caught me with this quote, but of course, once again, tying back to the acquisition of Bethesda, a company that leans very heavily on user-generated content to sustain relevance. I think Phil Spencer being very excited about the modding capability of Microsoft Flight Simulator and how they can evolve that with maybe other games. Maybe start thinking of, say, Starfield and how console mods could be a big selling point, right? Because a lot of people are up in the air on the exclusivity of the game itself. But imagine if Xbox was able to say, well, we have mods through and through on both console and PC. A lot of people were also worried with the Game Pass version of future BGS titles being limited in the modding department. A lot of people have messaged me about that, and I totally understand that concern. So seeing Phil Spencer genuinely excited about modding in, of all games, Microsoft Flight Simulator, I thought was good news. But you were the one who passed me this news, Carrick. So I want to get your 2 cents on this. Where do you stand on some of Phil's thoughts here on modding in Microsoft Flight Sim?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Microsoft Flight Sim's friggin' incredible.
Yeah,
So
it's a very
the
cool
idea
game.
of adding mods and stuff like that is awesome. I do firmly believe that like if Microsoft has to not do exclusive on some stuff, they'll probably set up mods. And if mods work on their own games, there'll be companies that, out there making third-party games that might say, hey, well, let's do mods as well. It just causes
Mm.
people to play them more. So like the idea of him being excited is great. I will say I'm also done with hearing about their excitement. This is the same way with any company, Nintendo, Sony. It's time to, and this is probably burnout from a couple games not meeting expectations last year. And the prior years, Breakpoint, Anthem, Cyberpunk. There's been a bunch of games that have not met um, the the criteria of excellence that you think are probably going to happen. I think with some of this stuff, I'm like, great, you like mods. What does that mean for me? Put the mods out, highlight them on your page. I want to log into Xbox and have Joe Blow, the mod maker, who puts boobs in Microsoft Flight Sim, to be the number one page I see. until we see that kind of support, I don't know what it means for a grassroots push for mods on everything. In fact, you may have to wait for a Fallout for that to matter. Because
Right.
Microsoft Flight Sim's a big deal, but for a lot of people, they look at it and they're like, I have no clue. This is scary. And so they don't care if there's mods because they're scared. And I get that because it can look frightening when you see it. You're like, how do I do all that with a
Well,
controller?
yeah, especially when you're going through like Nexus for say Fallout New Vegas. Like, yeah, it's still super intimidating even for me, and I've been doing it for
And you've been doing it for years.
5 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
5, 6
yeah.
years, man. Like, yeah, for sure, it's definitely intimidating. That's
I
why
want to
these.
see it on the OS, man. I want to see
That's
this
what I'm
shit up
saying.
front.
Yeah.
You
Because
know?
that's what Creation Club kind of had the idea of, but I think Bethesda did a
did, yeah.
horrible job with
They did.
marketing what it was, and it just didn't work out. And I think they just need to rebrand that whole thing and actually do
Well,
what people want or what they're seeing here with Microsoft Flight Simulator, like a modding program. People will happily pay for fully fledged mods because it adds content to their game.
Yeah, and right now when I go to a game, let's say I go to Fallout in my Xbox OS, what I want to see is drop down. And it's like, I'm tired of the super duper Uber version that doesn't even come with a fuck that. I'm talking about like when you click the button and it says the game or DLC, right? Well, add one that says mods. And so you've got the game, you click the mods, and it's like, boom, here's all the mods for Fallout. Here's all the mods. In fact, why not roll it out with the current games that are out and merge it? I mean, I get that there's mods on some of those games, but what I'm saying is they're not forefront enough. In fact, I would guarantee you that a lot of people who somewhat like Fallout and somewhat like Skyrim who would return still don't know there's mods on the consoles. I bet you, I would bet you $1 million that that's true. That a lot of people don't know the steps you can go to get certain games, even though like the Xbox has the 60 FPS version now of a couple of the games for their mods. So they need to forefront that shit. E3 or whatever the next one is. Forefront that. Put it on the front.
All right. Number 7, Microsoft is hard at work on producing more next-gen consoles as they are still currently sold out. We felt this would be relevant because a lot of people were asking about getting into the Xbox ecosystem. So during that same podcast with Larry Erb, Phil Spencer had the following to say. Quote, I get some people saying, why didn't you build more? Why didn't you start earlier? Why didn't you ship them earlier? All of those things. It really is just down to physics and engineering. We're not holding them back. We're building them as fast as we can. We have all of the assembly lines going. I was on the phone last week with Lisa Su at AMD saying, how do we get more? How can we get some more? So it's something that we're constantly working on, end quote. Then in a following quote, he goes, hardware is in short supply, but we're working as hard as we can. The teams are incredibly dedicated, and I appreciate people's patience as we work to build more. Phil Spencer had said, as he also noted, that the shortages were not exclusive to Xbox, but also impacting PlayStation, as well as the highly sought-after graphics cards. So, a little more lip service there, but new consoles on the horizon eventually within the coming months, I would imagine.
Imagine what it must be like, Maddie, to be him. It's like somebody asking me, why are you not married to Miss America? It's like, well, I've done my part. I'm as beautiful as humanly possible. She just hasn't showed up at my house. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you not releasing more? Why you, Phil Spencer, are not on the hardware line in your booties and in your fucking, mask and making new Xboxes? It's like, dude, that's the dumbest. I mean, I don't mean to be dumb, but I'm just saying we need to raise the general thought, the question and the intelligence of like what's going. It's like, of course they're not holding them back, you jackass. Like that's
I mean,
world.
They're selling out whenever they're
selling out.
So.
The world is screwed right now. Like how little thought process do you have if that's your question? Like there's so many other questions. For instance, if they're all being affected, here's a good question. If this is what they should have asked him, since they're all being infected right now, and we know that the virus and all this stuff has made effects, what in the future are your plans for mitigating, more situations like this? Like what is there a possibility you have looked at? Not right now, because we know right now is right now, but in the future, what have you thought about? Are there any thought processes for Microsoft? And in fact, there's answers for that. Microsoft moved to Thailand. They have a Thailand fab. And but you don't hear that in this. You just hear somebody saying, why did you not make more? It makes us all sound so fucking dumb. I'm not dissing on whoever that was. Who was that, by the way?
I think Phil was
that just
quoting
Phil talking?
What he's been receiving.
Okay.
He said I get some people saying that, so I think it's just general public.
We all want it, man.
Yeah, it's a great system. So Highly recommend you pick one up when you can. Number 8, xCloud Gaming currently has 22 games that can be played with touch controls via Game Pass on mobile. Some noteworthy titles that are in the mix are Gears of War 5, Dragon Quest 11, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Streets of Rage 4, and plenty more. Now, I just thought this was something worth highlighting simply because I think we talked about it a lot in episode 0. I think Xbox Cloud Gaming is going to be kind of the next big step for
Yeah.
Microsoft. Like, they're very much ahead in that department, and it's going to make them a lot of money. So having something like this where you have, I think the most noteworthy thing on this list, at least to me, would be a Gears of War 5 having compatible controls with touch. Like, you don't have to carry the controller that attaches to your phone around at this point in time.
So true.
So
I've got one of those somewhere.
yeah, right. And so just being able to access these games like that, I think will pay dividends in the future. So it's just something to make note of here that Microsoft is building a little something here. So just something I wanted to quickly highlight in our news right up here. Let's keep moving along here because we want to make sure that these shows are under 2 hours and we still got a decent amount of stuff to talk about, plus your questions at the end. So number 9, Stalker 2 is teased in-engine footage, garnering 2.3 million views. The anticipation for this game releasing on Series X/S, as well as PC, is certainly high. As developer GSC Game World had put it in the description box of the IGN exclusive video, the teaser represents, quote, how the game actually feels. Fast-paced change of scenery, ominous landscapes, and the ever-present feeling of an inevitable danger accompanied by a barely distinguishable guitar soundtrack, end quote. Some noteworthy aspects of the trailer were its version of Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, as well as the PDA 2.0, which is likely going to be used to help the player navigate the game world. I personally have been meaning to play Stalker for ages, but once I saw Stalker 2, I figured that is where I will begin. Did you have a chance to check out this teaser, which kind of came out of nowhere? Apparently, this game is coming in 2021, but we have no official word from developers. But are you excited for this game, and did you like anything you saw on what was just a teaser? It's hard to get excited about a teaser, I get, but is there anything there for you?
I'm excited for it, not because of this, but I was a fan of Stalker because it had a lot of Euro jank feel to it, but it was a weird RPG shooter kind of like just came out of nowhere. It was odd. And then you have the later games, the Last Light and all that stuff from the other series that were the Metro, which were like more slick. And I've always wanted that Stalker game where it feels like sometimes you're looking for that broken thing you can use because the game's pretty difficult. Dude, I'm not saying it was a Dark Souls of shooters or anything. There's a lot of deaths in that game from shit I wasn't expecting in the original. And so to me, I'm just really excited to check it out. I don't know if it'll be modernized. That could be something that we see a little bit of its
That'll be interesting.
a little bit of its edge go away, which would be sad, but I sort of expect it.
Yeah, because here's the thing: is there's sort of this vacancy in first-person post-apocalyptic games, right? You've got, I think, 3 major players. You've got Metro, you've got Fallout, and you've got Stalker. Stalker has a chance to be extremely popular title because right now Fallout has 76, which I think has improved a lot. It's on Game Pass. I would recommend giving it a look, actually. But still, 76 online game. Doesn't really channel, I feel, all of the post-apocalyptic atmosphere that prior Fallout entries have. The Metro series is going to continue, but I imagine it'll be a couple years before I see anything of that. So Stalker sort of has a window right now to capture an audience far bigger than the kind of, I think, more hardcore audience would be a best way of defining them. So I do expect it to be, like you said, removing some of the edges from that gameplay, removing the fangs, so to speak. But I'm very excited for this one. I want to see more. It was just nice to see that the game is continuing to be marketed. And
that was a lot of views.
Million views.
Yeah, that's a shit ton for
So,
a game, to be honest.
Especially for a tease of in-engine footage. That's usually like I'll go look at it later. Maybe because it was just a minute long, people figured I'll just check it out. But this is one to keep your eye on if you're new to the Xbox ecosystem. It's probably going to be a very highly anticipated title, and it's apparently coming out this year. We will see with that. We didn't include it in episode 0 because there wasn't any official word on that. And that leads us to number 10, our final bit of news before we move on into the Game Pass Game of the Week. You added this one in, Carrick. The possibility of WMR being on Xbox. This is one I think you'd be very excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, so there, I just wanted to, because people did ask me, they were like, what do you think the chances of are? And Phil's already stated that there were some issues with, getting it running on the original systems. There's some FPS issues, there's some stuff. I think the new systems, there's a far higher chance, especially when you look at WMR, which its setup is one wire. Like it doesn't require anything else. There's some issues with tracking, all that stuff, but Microsoft's looking at like a WMR 2.0, which is the reverb and some other stuff. I just wanted to point out to people that I wouldn't expect it too soon. I wouldn't also, we already had Sony saying that, or Ryan stated just 2 weeks ago that like the PS VR 2 is more like a year, if not 2 or 3 years out. And I think you can expect that with VR right now. It's doing well. It's had its heavy hitters like Alex, which is easily a Game of the Year contender. And some other big games. Insomniac, in fact, made one of the better VR games. So it's coming. It's just that you have to make VR be easy. Consoles hinge on the easiness. And it's actually one of the reasons why you get so many people mad if there's bugs on consoles. Because it's like, dude, it was one system. How did you not test for that? And I think what people want with VR is the ability, almost like glasses, where instead of all this difficulty, and Microsoft has tried HoloLens, there's a couple other things where they were sort of going for light. I think we have to wait until the technology is there before you see Microsoft like leap off. I don't know if they want you wearing a big headset during COVID times. Like even myself, I have all of the VR, and dude, there'll be a cool VR game, Maddie, and I'll look at the headset. The headset, I can touch it. I'm touching it, and I'll still be like, "Nah."
I have that a lot.
And I love the VR, by the way.
Yeah.
So
I have that with my Oculus a ton. I'll just look at it and go, I don't want to wear this weight on my face. Like that's just really it. So
yeah, but anyway, long story short, there's possibilities, I think, for all the systems to have stuff. It's just there's some micronization comfort things that need to happen, I think, first. That was it.
Okay. Well, thank you for adding that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your Xbox news for the week. Now we move into some of the more different content here. We had our Game Pass Game of the Week. We have PC Deals of the Week, and then we have your 5 questions to wrap up this show. So let's do our Game Pass Game of the Week. This is where we want to dive into one of the more substantial parts of the Xbox ecosystem and highlight to all of you maybe something a little more, I don't want to say under the radar, but something you may have passed on or you haven't checked out yet that we have and we would recommend to you. So we're going to be doing this each and every week. We're going to come together, each of us with our own game, and we're going to share it with you. And the idea is, there are some pretty blatantly clear ones you should try. So I'm personally at least going to try to avoid that stuff. So my selection for the Game Pass Game of the Week was Streets of Rage 4. I downloaded this game about 2 nights ago. A buddy of mine downloaded it as well through his Game Pass subscription, and we played it through, beat it together. We did the arcade mode. It's about a 3-hour game tops, very short. For those unfamiliar with Streets of Rage, this is a beat-em-up franchise, and I gotta say, it was a blast, man. The art style for this game is great. It's really simple. You have an attack button, and then you have a special button. The special does a lot of damage, and it hits a lot more enemies at once, but when you use your special, you drain your health. How do you get your health back? You hit enemies. So it's a really good feedback loop. And of course, there's that built-in trying to master the beat 'em up that comes with any of those types of games where, how do you avoid getting hit? You could throw weapons, they'll bounce off the enemy, you'll catch them in the air, and then you can throw them again, or you can just use them for standard attacks. I don't want to say depth, but there is something here for Streets of Rage 4 where it's very simple, but it's also got a little more depth than it appears to be. What's great, too, online co-op. So you can download this with a buddy who also has Game Pass or has the game in general, and you can play 2-player online co-op. And that's what I did the whole way through. So you can get that kind of couch co-op feeling, especially in my case, I'm quarantining. So, for me, it's been nice to just sit down and game with someone because I've just been in my room for the last week and a half. So yeah, Streets of Rage 4 is one that if you haven't tried, I know a lot of people highlighted in their write-ins for Defining Duke that they were saying, hey, I'm short on time. And so I felt this would be a great first game to recommend. It's quick, it's simple. You have more content there once you finish the story mode if you'd like to, like a boss rush mode even. And it feels good to play, and you can play with a friend, so it's not going to eat up too much of your time. It's perfect for when you're in between games. So let's say you have a couple of releases mapped out, you're looking for one to hop into, Streets of Rage 4 would be perfect. So that is my Game Pass Game of the Week. Carrick, yours doesn't look like it's a game. yours is in fact the rumor.
Well, my game would be Stellaris on Game Pass for sure. If we were talking about specific games, because I like 4X games. And the idea that we're now starting to see consoles, because I remember on the original Xbox playing Urbs, which was like the urban version of Sims. And I'll always being really happy to see those kind of games get on the consoles. And now we're starting to see 4X games come on the consoles.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously not brand new, but seeing that on Game Pass where you're talking like hundreds of hours of gameplay. But I did want to say, yeah, there was a rumor, and I wanted to indicate that because we don't talk about xCloud very often. And xCloud to me is one of the more like exciting parts of what's going on. And I don't think it's exciting because I think it's perfect, because I don't. I use it. It's not perfect at all. But some of the deals Microsoft's been doing, like Samsung announced that, you should be expecting to see, particular people and apps on their TVs and stuff like that. And the idea of like an xCloud being on your Samsung, and being able to do that with native apps is super exciting for me. And I think a lot of people skip out on xCloud. And there's a lot of games that work on xCloud that don't require perfect control. They don't require the minutia of perfection for like a mouse and keyboard. And I've told you this, I was streaming to my Switch, and streaming to my tablet in xCloud in particular, and I was playing on the tablet just going like, holy shit, this is so sweet. Like it replaced the Switch a little bit, because I used to play Skyrim on the Switch, but dude, I was playing. Now, admittedly, this is a slightly different system, but I just want to tell people the power. I was playing Skyrim with like 300 mods on my tablet with like perfect graphics, and I was just like, holy shit, this is the future, man. This is like this is the future, and I think that's cool for xCloud. So just as a whole, I'm really excited for like what that can offer people.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the next logical expansion. So those are our Game Pass games of the week: Streets of Rage 4 and Stellaris. What you said 4X? Cool. That is a
space.
I'm trying to remember what type of game that is.
Yeah, space. Oh, 4X means your 4 types of strategy. So it's like space. It's exploration. It's got a lot of tabs. Spreadsheet game a little bit for some people, but you're controlling planets. And then you have tons of ways to win. That's, I think, one of the reasons why I like it, because it's like diplomacy. Is it battle? Is it just outliving your opponents? It's the strategy of using the galaxy map to like end around some other alien race and huge tech trees. So I just dig it.
Yeah, there's something weird about like the spreadsheet and seeing all the numbers in games, because I feel smart. I think that's what it does. It provides an emotion that I
especially when you figure it out. There's a satisfaction when you like raise a point and see it go up somewhere you expected. Even in an RPG, I just did that in a game I can't talk about, but there'll be some videos in the next couple of weeks. But I was playing a game and I was like, when you figure it out, there's something really tangible. You're like, oh, I get it. Right. I see what's going on right now. Very cool feeling. And 4Xs are known for that.
All right. Give those a look. I know Streets of Rage 4 is on PC and Xbox Game Pass, so you can play either there.
And yeah, admittedly, I think Stellaris is on both, yeah.
All right. That moves into our PC Deals of the Week. Once again, keep in mind we could add in here backwards compatible Game of the Week if you're interested. And now we got 5 for you. Did a little bit of hunting around. And let us know how we can evolve this, because what I did was I looked for specific parts, products that I've had experience with, and parts that I know are highly sought after, and looked up discount sales that were ongoing for them. But if there's a way we can evolve the PC Deals of the Week in other ways to continue to spotlight that aspect of the Xbox, or really Microsoft ecosystem, just go ahead and let us know. So number 1, I went over to Humble Bundle. That was the first thing I thought of when I came up with this segment. And right now you can net a suite of games for the month of January. The highlights include Warhammer Chaos Bane, PC Building Simulator, which these simulator games a lot of people really like, so I wanted to make sure people knew about that. Ancestors, The Humankind Odyssey. I know there was a lot of controversy around that game. Vampire the Masquerade Shadows of New York, and more. The Humble Bundle subscription allows you to choose from 9 games a month if you're signed up for the $12 a month. And this is the site's honestly best standing offer, because then you can pay $15 a month and you can pick 3 games. So it kind of works you back where you look at this $10+ value and go, well, that's the best. So what I recommend with Humble Bundle, as we continue to highlight that here in this segment, we'll always check in on them and what they're up to, is this is definitely a sign up for a month or 2 type of subscription. It's not like a Game Pass where it's more recurrent. So those are just some of the highlights there from Humble Bundle if you're interested in that. I keep almost saying Hundle Bundle.
Hundo Bundle.
Hundle Bundle. Sounds like a type of shit. Number 2. Intel's i9 processor is currently on sale with a $109 discount. Currently, you could scoop it up from Amazon for $430 as opposed to its $500+ usual price tag. Number 3, Walmart is currently carrying the Razer Power Up bundle, which goes for $70. This bundle holds one Sonosa Lite gaming keyboard, one Viper ambidextrous wired gaming mouse, and one Kraken X Lite gaming headset. Now, personally, I've had experience with all of these products, and I got to say, for $70, I think this is pretty good. This is one of my favorite deals I found when I was hunting around. I know Razer is kind of a brand that's very like popular gamer, but I got to say, if you're just hopping into extra hardware for your gaming setup, getting a new keyboard, even that can be very pricey if you're looking at mechanical stuff. So $70 to get a whole bundle of all of that off of Walmart. Once again, it's called the Razer Power Up bundle. This is one I would really recommend giving a look. Because I don't know about you, Carrick. I know you're a big audio guy. I was never big on gaming headsets growing up until I turned like 15, 16, I want to say. That's when I got my first Turtle Beach, and it kind of changed my world. But I think there's a lot of people out there who are all about the traditional TV sound setup. So
Yeah.
I think this is a good way to get people to buy in. Got 2 more here, and then we'll move on to the questions to wrap up the show. Number 4, Newegg is offering the Skytech Azure gaming PC desktop featuring an AMD Ryzen 5 3600X at 3.8 gigahertz, RTX 3070 8 gigabytes, as well as 16 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD for an almost $200 discount, landing at $1,479. And number 5, sticking with the desktops, Corsair Vengeance i7 200 gaming PC features an i9 processor and an RTX 3080 graphics card, which has been spotted on Amazon for $2,900. And the same bundle with a 3070 goes for $2,300. Now, while this is not a true, I put this in quotes, deal for those budgeting, still the demand is there for this high-end PC, and it has sold out relatively quickly. But right now, you can hop over to Amazon and get the 3070 bundle. That is still available when I last looked before recording this show. With that, Carrick,
That's a lot.
we move on to our... Yeah, it is a lot of money. I know, because calling it PC Deals of the Week and then being like, here's something for $2,900.
Yeah.
But it is high-end stuff in there. And I know some people do have the means to spend on such a product. And they for me, like when I bought my PC 5 years ago, I spent about, I want to say $2,000. And, it future-proofed. I still use it, right? So here we are in 2021. So future-proofing your setup, it definitely pays off in a lot of ways.
Maddie?
What's up?
Maddie. Telephone call.
Gotcha. All
I'll be
right.
right back.
I'll move on to the 5 ending questions of the show. Carrick just has to step away real quick because he's getting a call from his wife. The Late Nate writes in, hey guys, really excited for this new podcast. Thank you. Just a quick question. Do you think that Xbox controllers will have adaptive triggers similar to what's in the DualSense by the end of the generation? And if yes, when do you think we'd see them? Take care, boys, and looking forward to many more episodes of this podcast. So I did a little bit of research for you, Nate, because I was curious about this myself. Now, anecdotally speaking, when I was thinking of DualSense, I think it really depends how much you see developers take advantage of this. So we saw Astro's Playroom launch on the PS5. It was a lot of people's favorite game of the year. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed that game. So I got to say that if we see more experiences like that where you can feel things like right when you're climbing up and you're rotating the controller, or when you're using the touchpad and having that zip up the back of the Astrobot and stuff, if we see that level of interaction relatively consistently with big releases, I do think you will see Microsoft start to embrace it. In fact, they're already poking around about this, because I found online a survey from Microsoft asking whether users are aware of features on PlayStation controllers that they wish were on Xbox controllers. So with here, based off this survey, they are talking about the DualSense capabilities that PlayStation is offering, and that would you want to see that on an Xbox controller in the future. The issue I think Microsoft has really had with their Xbox controllers is, I think, pricing. They offer some of the best controllers. I know we're running an Xbox show here. I love the DualSense, but I gotta say, the controller that comes with the Series X is my favorite controller. I've adored it since I started using it. I love the kind of clickiness of the D-pad. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's just a very responsive controller. And you can feel that through its buttons, its D-pad, its triggers. I always have a tough time, for those of you watching on video, you can see, I always have a tough time with RB and LB. These two always give me trouble, and I like that they're just a soft click here. I think of the 360 controller and even the original Xbox One controller where RB and LB just weren't responsive. They were almost like a soft press. Having them actually be clicky buttons, I think was a subtle improvement. So I think the Xbox controller is in a good position right now, and that I think you will see if more developers embrace it. It's about all technology. If developers embrace it, then you'll see companies adapt. So with DualSense, if we see more developers doing things beyond what we've seen with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, where you see like the trigger kind of stop a little bit. If we see them go beyond that and it continues to help PlayStation and it creates buzz, I do think you will see Microsoft add to their controller personally in a future rendition. But it's all based on the games, right? If the games are supporting it, then Microsoft has to act. If they're not, then they don't really have to. But they are asking around via a survey. Welcome back, Carrick.
Thank you.
All right. Jose Harak writes in with our second question. Hey there, gentlemen. Congratulations on the new show. I've been looking for someone to clearly explain this, so I hope you guys can help. I was interested in the Series S for its great price point, but if it's considerably less powerful than the Series X, how will it keep up this generation as games utilize next-gen hardware more effectively? Is there any worth in getting a Series S since I plan on only using it for Game Pass content? Or should I save up and go with the Series X instead? Thanks a lot, and good luck with the show. Thank you, Jose. So, Carrick, you came back at just the right time because I picked this out for you as someone who, you do have both, correct?
I do.
So, we've already seen online with something like Yakuza 7 came to mind right away. It had very different specs and performance from that of the Series X version of Yakuza 7 and the PlayStation 5 version. I think the Series S isn't marketed for people like folks listening to this show. I think it's for a little bit more casual, but that is my personal interpretation based off what I'm seeing performance-wise, what I'm reading online, and also just the price points and one being a lot more hardcore than the other. But for you, as someone who has used both, what should Jose go with? Because he's saying that the S is considerably less powerful than the Series X, which is true, but at the same time, you can get like ray tracing in Watch Dogs Legion, and I think that is very impressive. So there is power there. It's just, are you going to get that full power? I mean, you see something like the medium, right? We were just talking about how they had to leave behind the Xbox One version because they said, hey, we have to run this game twice. And you just can't do that on old hardware. So there is power here in the Series S. But is it enough to justify going out and picking that up, or should he go with the Series X?
If he's got the money and he's going to do Game Pass, you'd probably go with the X for sheer size of the hard drive. It depends on the price and what you can get. I will say the S has some efficiencies that even the 1X doesn't have. It's got the NVMe, which is huge. So there's a lot of bonuses you'll get regardless of the power difference between the S and the X, including, which for a lot of people matters, the loading speeds and stuff like that. I mean, remembering that the S has the same CPU as the X, which is crazy. And both of those, they get rid of the crappy Jaguar mobile CPUs from the originals and go with full-on monster CPUs. I think I just said GPUs. They get rid of the Jaguar CPUs that were on the originals. But yeah, I would probably, just for sheer size and because he says Game Pass, go with the X. On the other hand, dude, I've had a lot of people who see the S and have seen like ray tracing on a couple games, or even Valhalla, strangely enough, because if you play Valhalla and on the S and the X, because of the way the S does upscaling and where it's hitting resolution wise and where you're sitting at your TV, I have a lot of friends who have the S who aren't unhappy at all for the cost. Like at all. So there is that. Like you said, it sort of depends on what your level is. I mean, and that's what Microsoft's about. Super low level, mid level, and high level being PC. I mean, we just said high level, $2,300. Obviously, that's a high level. Yeah. That's why whenever anybody says, oh, I'll just play it on my PC, it's like, will you? Will you? Do you have the right GPU for that? I mean, there's so many more questions that people who want to attack the Xbox do not grasp when it comes to where your tiers are. And I can see the S being utilized for some people.
what's happening is, it used to be just like the one console, the one slightly more
Yeah.
powerful console,
Yeah.
and then the PC configurations. But I think development's going to get very complicated because, for all CD Projekt Red did wrong with, say, Cyberpunk's launch, they were pretty clear that they made 9 different versions of the game, right? Because they had
Yep.
Stadia as well. And so what's going to happen, Jose, is no matter where you invest, it's not going to eliminate the needed research to see how the game is performing
Yeah.
on your particular system. So if you get the Series X, there might be situations where the S wins out, just based off situations that Carrick had highlighted.
Especially variable FPS. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
Maddie, but I hate variable. And because variable usually means just gets bad during the busy times, which is when I
Yeah.
don't want it to be bad. And so like you'll have the S where somebody's like, we'll lock it at 30, which doesn't feel great, but it's locked at least. And then the X might say, in the future, oh, it's variable. And you'll be like, oh, because that's right when I don't want it to be variable, when I need to pinpoint this son of a bitch 300 yards away. Yeah, yeah. And like you said, 6, 7, 8, and 9 platforms now for a developer. It's crazy.
So it's going to get complicated. My personal suggestion would be save up, go with the Series X. I think you'll get more consistency out of that. And I also believe that the S isn't marketed for most people listening to this. I think the S is perfect for your person who's signing in, playing a little Madden, playing a little FIFA, the occasional single player game that catches their eye on Game Pass, and really nothing more, because they don't need that substantial hard drive space. They're not as, I think, deeply involved in the conversation. They don't need the big money investment. So for me personally, Jose, I would say Series X.
I will say, I don't know if I agree with you though, Maddie, on who's watching this podcast, because if they're an
They have so much reach.
Well, no, but I mean, there's
I'm
Xbox, like Game Pass is value. You can also purchase the S and the X via the purchase plan, where you don't put any money forward. You buy it through Microsoft. And it's like, I get what you mean, where people listening to this may not be involved in the S, but I know a lot of people who want the Game Pass /X deal. And I've seen them on Colin's. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know Colin's fans as much, but I know even for mine, where I come across very technical minded, the number of people who are still playing on an Xbox original or a PS4 original is much higher by a factor of probably 50 compared to anybody on anything more powerful, because the base platforms are all they have money for right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, I wouldn't so quickly say that that the people listening may not be interested. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's fair to point out. I personally just look at it as, I feel like for the best experience, you'd probably be looking at the Series X if you're listening to this. But if you don't care, that's what the S is about, right? If you're just looking for a Game Pass machine, which some people are, it could just be that simple.
Yeah. It's hard to know. It really depends on, right? It'll take a year or two for us to figure out.
It really depends on how much you care. All right. Amir writes in, hey, both. As a self-professed Xbox fanboy from the 360 days, I'm so happy to see an Xbox-tailored show. Thank you. As someone who doesn't get a lot of time to play games due to work and family, I get most of my gaming outlet from Sacred Symbols and both your YouTube channels. I really appreciate the work, and I can't wait to see how this show develops. Thank you again. Very nice of you guys all to write in. To end this on a question, what is your favorite Xbox 360 game? Carrick, there's a wide array of titles to pick from on that one. Your favorite Xbox 360
Halo
game.
3.
Interesting. Really?
Halo 3, I've put so many hours in, I wouldn't easily be able to. And it was a step. The difference between Halo 2 and 3 is just massive. The colored lighting and the post-processing. Yeah. I loved Halo 3.
Yeah, Halo 3 is definitely up there. I gotta say, and it's tough because I did recently play it, but I know if I played it earlier on, it definitely would have been. So I'm going to put out there, for also the sake of conversation, Lost Odyssey. That is such a good game. I mean, the fact that I played that last year, it was my first time playing it, and I think it aged phenomenally well. Like it really genuinely did. It felt in so many ways like a game that came out recently. And it kind of just scratched that Final Fantasy itch in a lot of ways. I thought the story was really good, but also crazy at times. the characters are really wonderful. Like the gameplay
Yeah.
systems are unique. I love the skill system. For those who don't know, who haven't played Lost Odyssey, you fight enemies and you'll earn SP. And so let's say you have like a certain bangle on that has like an HP regen skill. You can permanently assign that to your character once you have enough SP built up. So you're constantly like exchanging items and stuff. There's a lot of meta gaming in it. You're constantly just exchanging your equipment and linking yourself to other characters in your party. But that worked really well for me. So yeah, Halo 3 is definitely an easy one I would pick, but I'm going to go with Lost Odyssey. I think that is a phenomenal game that really needs a sequel. I would love to see more from that franchise. Because a lot of my favorite 360 games that I played were really third-party games, like, Borderlands 2, Skyrim. Those are games I played probably the most on my 360, but, at the end of the day, those are not exclusive. So, exclusive 360 game, I'm going to go with Lost Odyssey. All right, we got 2 more questions left, and then we're out of here. John BX32 writes in, "Hey, Maddie and Carrick, congrats on the show. I'm super excited you guys are doing it." Thank you. I just wanted to write in about some more console exclusives coming in 2021 that weren't mentioned on episode 0. Ark 2, Stalker 2, and 3 games from Annapurna Interactive. 12 Minutes, The Artful Escape, and Last Stop. What are your thoughts on these games? Thanks. Well, we appreciate you guys pointing this out. A lot of you wrote in with some other potential things we missed. And that is awesome because now we got a little bit more to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's run down this list here. Ark 2, Carrick. Fuck this game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, I enjoyed my time with Ark because it was a mess. So if this is a mess and fun to play,
so uninterested. Worst trailer. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Stalker 2, we already talked about. We
Yep.
had a whole section dedicated to that. 12 Minutes. This one looks awesome. Do you remember this game? The one where you walk, it's like the camera's at the top. You walk into a room and like there's constantly different things happening. Like there's people dying, there's people having dinner.
Almost like you're playing a weird supernatural The Friends or something from the top down and watching all of the things, different experiences happening. Yes, very interested in that game. I forgot that was called 12 Minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, because they have that, and then it's not The Last Stop. There is another game,
a similar game
demoed at, I want to say it was E3 2018. It was that kind of nighttime cyberpunk, very neon. It was a side scroller.
It was like the last night, I believe, is what that one's called. But
that game, I'll look it up while we continue to discuss.
Pixel
but that
cyberpunk looking one.
Yeah, that one looked awesome. That was one I was really keen on.
By the way, the developer also stated last month that it's still for sure coming. He just went into quiet mode.
It was the last night. It's a upcoming cinematic platform game being developed by Odd Tales and is published by Raw Fury, which is a great publisher to have.
Very much so.
Next gen cinematic sci-fi thriller game. It looks so cool. I'm very excited for that. When they give us a release date on that, I'll be talking about that a lot. But 12 Minutes is definitely on my radar. It has been for a while. Artful Escape and Last Stop, those don't ring any bells for me personally. Do they for you?
They do not. They do not.
All right.
I was looking at those and I don't recognize The Last Stop. I do recognize Artful Escape, but it's a little bit like Gunk, or what was that one? Gunk.
Oh God. The Moist Gunk.
The Moist Gunk. Which, by the way, people reminded us there was a game called Wet, which is absolutely true.
I saw
Phenomenally bad game. But no, in fact, there's more games that are Xbox that we'll see, coming up as well. I'm actually excited for what I have a feeling we'll see some stuff that's pretty exciting. For me, 12 Minutes is the one of all these, though. Well, Stalker, but you get my drift. Of the side games, 12 Minutes is sort of my jam.
Yeah, 12 Minutes. Because 12 Minutes just looks like super replayable. Like, how many ways can this go? So that's always up my alley. All right. The last question comes in from Robert Egan. Hi, fine gents, and congratulations on the new podcast. My question is, to help to get to know you both while being tied to Xbox, what is the first Xbox game you played, and what upcoming Xbox game excites you the most? Lots of love from Wales. Keep safe. So I thought Robert's question was a perfect way to cap off episode 1. Carrick, your first Xbox game you played. Do you even remember it? How many years ago was that one, huh?
Man, it might have been Mercenaries.
Ooh, really?
Because
Nice
at that time
pandemic game. Holy crap.
I had a hacked Xbox, and you could adjust the INI file like a PC INI file, and you could have crazy shit happen in the game. And I remember
That's
that
awesome.
distinctly, but it might have just replaced. Oh no, okay. There's a racing title called Tokyo. Son of a Tokyo. Oh my god, I can't remember.
There were so many random racing games around
But
that
it's
time.
like
There's someone...
it's a racing game where you do quests, but you never get out of the car. Because this is back in the day when getting out of the car would be a totally different engine. And what happened was they'd be like, bombs are placed on all the hot dog vendors in town, so you need to smash them with your car.
What?
And then when you died or won, you could also do a replay, and you could adjust the shaders because it was an NVIDIA card inside the Xbox, and you could adjust the shaders to like look embossed during your replay or look like a cartoon. And it was called Tokyo something. I'm sure somebody who watching will know.
Tokyo Extreme Racer?
Tokyo Extreme. Nope. Maybe. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right that it was called that. But it was a game where you were spies in various vehicles, and that's all it was. And so they'd be like, yeah, you need to smash through all the fucking hot dog stands. Like, it was just absolutely asinine. But it was one of my first... Yeah, especially because I do have family who worked at Microsoft and have done some modding there and stuff like that. It was one of my first real looks at a console where like the shaders, the post-processing during replay, those kind of things were crazy to see in real time. And I remember being really impressed from a technical standpoint of being able to do that. That's my biggest memory.
My first Xbox game was... We're talking about it on the CLS Discord. It was Munch's Odyssey, Oddworld Munch's Odyssey. It came with my Xbox when my dad got it for me. It was either that or NFL Fever. But I'm gonna go. NFL Fever was fucking awesome. I was so happy to see people in that Discord actually talking about that game because that was one that I really, really liked. But anyway, yeah, I gotta say, Munch's Odyssey is one of my favorite games ever, just purely because of nostalgia. It's like a 3D platformer where you run around as either Abe or Munch, and you got to like gather pretty much everyone, all the Mudokons, and like they're kind of light puzzles that you have to solve throughout the level to escape. You're always trying to escape an area, and I remember that game giving me horrible anxiety as a kid because there were like levels where you had to get the Mudokon. They called them scrubs. Like the sligs would enslave them and make them clean the floors and stuff. And so you'd have to pick up the scrubs as Abe, and you drink an espresso can, which would make him run fast. And you'd have to run through fucking minefields.
Yeah.
And like you'd be going so fast, and you're holding this big ass Duke controller while you're doing it. I gotta say, this is one that I really recommend to people. It's on PS3, it's on Vita, it's on PS4, it's on Switch, it's on Xbox. It's very accessible now, but it's one of my favorite games. Really love the Oddworld franchise. As for an upcoming Xbox game that excites us most, Carrick, what would that be for you?
Yeah, it would probably be Stalker. Well, I mean, there's some games that we hear about, so I'm not going to go there with like rumors. But I would say for upcoming Xbox in particular, Stalker does interest me. I'm a huge Stalker fan, and the idea of seeing that. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers. It turns out to have the DNA of the original, at least in some way. So I would definitely say Stalker.
As for me, I said it earlier in the show when Carrick had challenged me. I did Avowed. Avowed would be still my most exciting upcoming Xbox game. For those who are new to me, I'm a huge Obsidian fan. I've loved New Vegas. I love South Park, even Alpha Protocol. I love KOTOR 2.
Dude, Alpha Protocol was so good and so bad at the same time.
Exactly.
It's so terrible, but
it's so fascinating. And so I think they just make some of the best RPGs. They just have a certain DNA to their games. I love the Outer Worlds as well.
And they're all hot girlfriends who are crazy when you think about it, right? Like there's stuff you like, but then you're like, damn, all the time in almost all of those games, including Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
There was a lot I liked in Outer Worlds, but
I know I'm more partial to their games. I even in my review was like, by the way, I'm pretty biased towards these games. So like, feel free to, I always tell people watch multiple reviews, but in this case, definitely go watch another review. But it's funny because even though I feel like I am biased towards their games, I gotta say, I I found the conversation on the Outer Worlds always really interesting because a lot of people have soured on it. A lot of people really aren't
Not me.
as big on it, and I still love that game.
Yeah.
The Switch port I went back, that soured my taste on the Switch port. When I played that,
Right.
that shit sucked. But when it came to the game itself, especially after Cyberpunk, I really appreciate the kind of smaller, tighter scale that they stuck to with this game. I really liked it. A lot of people didn't, but to each their own. Still very excited for Avowed, which will be a AAA open world game, kind of Obsidian Skyrim, which is just words that melt my brain. Very excited for that. So when that comes around, we'll be talking about that a lot on this show, and any little bit of detail we can get our fingers on, I'll be sure to add in here. But with that, that'll wrap up episode 1 of Defining Duke and Xbox podcast. And so if you got this deep, we want to start off by just thanking you for
definitely
sticking with us, giving us a chance. If you want to connect with us more, we both have YouTube channels, ACG, as well as Mr. Matty Plays. We both have extra Patreons if you want to support us a little bit of an extra step, where you can learn more over on our respective channels. But with that, Carrick, any final words? Or do we close this out?
I'm trying to think, is there a final word? There's got to be something final. We got to always end this on some weird note. Otherwise, it's just not going to feel like me and you.
We were pretty tame in the scheme of
things. We were. Admittedly, when did we record? Real quick, we're just going to show a little bit of like behind the scenes baseball here. When did we record the last one during the day? Was it later in the day?
It was around the same time. I think it was around 2, I want to say.
Because I fast until around 11 or 12 after the 2 workouts, and I believe I ate prior to the last podcast, so I had more energy. And so in this podcast, I was like dragging. I was like, oh my god, I've drank so many milligrams of caffeine.
If people are watching the video version, they'll see I was drinking water and then I switched to Gatorade because I was just like, I need a little sugar.
Dude,
I need a little pick me up.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But regardless of that, yeah, I do. I just want to say thanks to everybody who it was funny because other than 1 or 2 negative ones towards me, which I'm fully about, everybody was really
I got
positive.
called an airhead. It's all right. Don't worry.
Did you? I had somebody say, I'd rather watch it with anybody but Carrick. And I was like, just plug your ears when I'm talking. It's the same thing. You'll get the same amount of data. Because I am very active in comments. And I know some people were not expecting that because I saw some people be like, whoa. Because, yeah, I'll take the shit out of somebody in comments if they're going to be a jackass. But what I was going to say was I love that people jump in and are genuinely excited about it. I hope, I can't wait until it skews more towards, hey, this is just an X, instead of like, hey, you're fighting the good fight, which I love to hear, but at the same time, it's like, it's not really about that, man. It's like love for Xbox. Also, I want to shout out to some people on various forums who were like, we need people who are just Xbox fans who don't care about the truth. I actually saw that. No lie, Maddie.
What?
Yeah. I saw somebody who said, I don't care. I don't want them doing the podcast because I want just an absolute fan who will basically talk positive. And I was like, listen, man, I'm not going to blow wind up your ass, And they were like, somebody was like, you're not a true Xbox fan. And I was like, dude, you've never seen my podcast then. Because it usually skews where people think I'm the opposite, where people are like, does he, because I call the shit out on everything. But I hope as we move on, people sort of understand what this is, which is passion for a competitor in a scene where there needs to be at least 2, if not 3, Switch, Microsoft and Sony, and engage in a conversation that's a little bit more adult, even though I am not. But I love the idea of more information about Xbox because there's some cool stuff that at the very minimum pushes other people.
I agree. I mean, I look at our news roundup, man, and I mean, this all had to deal with just the Xbox ecosystem. And what I noted while I was going through it is you can find it, but no one's really talking about it on a certain level that you would almost expect. And I know, like, for some of them, like Hammerfell for Elder Scrolls 6 with Dishonored, just kind of saying like, yeah, we're Harvey Smith's making a game. Like, I know some of those, but I feel like Game Pass editions are significant. I feel like new hardware supply is pretty significant. The touch-based controls, obviously Stalker 2 got its attention, but it just, we don't want to come across like we're just pure Xbox fanboys in the way where we're like, give them attention. But I do think there is a degree right now of like
lack of attention,
suppression almost.
Yeah.
And it's very weird. And I feel like the only attention it got was when, and I understand why, Halo Infinite didn't debut that well.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for this, because I want people to see some of the positives that they, and it's great, dude. Did you see some of the comments? I mean, the number of comments where people are like, this is the first time I've got an Xbox, which I've noticed a lot of people are saying that even in my Discord. And we have like 2,000 people in the Discord, and there's a huge number of people that are like, dude, this is the first Xbox system I've had or whatever, and what should I do? And it's sort of cool to see people jumping into that and understanding that like there's something there. Just like Switch, by the way. You remember how I dissed on during your podcast? I was like, the Switch, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I think, what was it? It might have been, it wasn't Raving Rabbits. I don't remember which game it was, but I remember being like, oh man, I was wrong. And I think it's really cool to see people admit that. I saw people in the chat who were like, hey, listen, I'm not huge into Xbox, but like, I'll give it a chance, which is pretty rare on YouTube. It's pretty rare to see somebody that open, which I like, and I applaud.
That's the benefit of us doing this, I think, is we have our own kind of pedigree, which makes it a little more attractive, if I'm honest. Not to like blow smoke up our own ass, but not only that, I think, Colin's audience he's kind of built is very open. The fact that he ran his own channel for a little bit and then handed sort of me and Dustin the keys to the castle, and people were like pretty warm and receptive to us going onto a channel called Colin's Last Stand and providing videos with our input, our thoughts, not Colin's, and people were like, this is good. We like this. Like, yeah, I think they're just very open. So I have no doubt that the future of this show is very bright. And as Xbox does more big things like the Bethesda move and announces more games and shows off more, I think this show is going to grow tremendously. So we can't wait for those of you who are early birds alongside us to join us on this journey.
Yeah, for sure.
With that, we will stop now, and we'll cap off episode 1, and we look forward to seeing you all for episode 2. Once again, early access goes live on Thursdays on patreon.com/laststandmedia. It goes out on free feeds as well as YouTube on Sunday. So wherever you want to listen, that is where you will find us and when you will find us. And now it's time once again for us to sign off. So thank you so much for your time, for your interest, and leave your feedback. Let us know how we can improve the show or if we did a damn good job. With that, we'll catch you guys next week. All right? Take care.
Peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is recorded from the good old USA. The show was conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Jeremy ACG Penter. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.